So I've got a number of slides in here that kind of get more of the contact information, which if you grab the one pager, you're probably in good shape, but I wanted to go through it one more time. And I also want to spend a couple slides just going through actually what the website looks like if you haven't had a chance to get on there. It's one thing for us to get up there and talk about, and you just get on the website and click around and you'll be able to get to what you want to find eventually, but it's more helpful to actually have someone walk you through the various pieces to make sure you're correctly pointed in the right direction. So this is just the general contact information that's out there. Again, this is on the one pager. If you do wish to sign up for formal notices to be updated about where the project stands from DPS, they have a listserv that they keep, basically a running tabulation of names that they'll keep and send out a blast email to let people know when a new notice has been issued with the project, for the project. You can do that by emailing the Secretary of DPS here or writing in. Again, either option is available to you, whether depending on which you're more comfortable with. I mentioned some of these websites before, electronic documents associated with the project, and I'll have some screen captures of what the computer screen looks like, but these are some of the websites. Again, it's important to keep this case number in mind for Cape Vincent Wind Farm. And I provided the contact information before, but this also includes the Public Information Coordinator, Mr. James Dan at the DPS as well. I did not mention that before. Mine is mentioned, I did mention previously. So I've got there's a couple different ways to get there. If you go to dps.ny.gov, you can click on the sidebar over here, what's new. From there, it'll take you to another web page. You can see how the web address becomes complicated very quickly. So start simple and click your way through. Here you'd want to go to search, put that case number in again down here. You can search by case number, and then that'll bring you to this screen, which has the Cape Vincent Wind Farm project. And this tab here about file documents, this is where you'll find all the different pieces of material that have been filed on the project. So the preliminary scoping statement, step before that back in the fall for the public involvement program plan, those materials are there. So that's one way to get there. Another way to get there, instead of dps.ny.gov, you can add a / siting board. And that'll take you to this page, and you can just go straight to projects under review. I actually find this approach easier. Preliminary scoping statement submittals was recently highlighted. You can click on there, and it'll take you to this web page where you'll see the Cape Vincent Wind Farm again. You click on there, and it'll take you to that same web page again that we saw before with all the documents. Other materials that are available on the siting board website that you might find helpful. Again, we've got some of the intervenor funding materials up front, but if you want to attack it electronically, on the left-hand side, you'll see the red circle for siting board forms. When you click on that, it'll bring you to this web page, where you can then seek the application for intervenor funding. You'll have to click on this Adobe Acrobat icon. It'll open up a new web page that'll look like this. Request for intervenor funding, and you can see here it's a 10-page application. This is page 1 of 10. Again, we do have some hard copies up front, a limited amount up front. The other thing I want to point out from the siting board webpage that the DPS has put together is as a guide is the guide to intervenor funding. So if you click on, what did I have on there? If you click on siting board guides in the red, it'll take you to this web page, and you can click down here, and that will bring up the guide, which is an 11-page document, and we've got some copies of that up front as well. So I think that's all I had. Did anyone want me to go back to the web pages? Okay. I think that was the last slide I had. So let me stop there, and I'll open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Richard. Thanks again for coming and explaining this process.
Sure, thank you for coming.
And I think the easiest question I'll put to you first, and that is today's recommendation for the presiding examiner. Who is that and what is his title?
Paul Agresta.
Okay.
He's an administrative law judge?
Yes.
He's an administrative law judge that's been selected as the presiding examiner.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And a comment on Exhibit A in your PSS.
Okay.
That's the great big map that
Sure.
folds up. It shows all of the facilities. It's called the facilities projection. So the map legend has 7 black symbols on it. And the legend says that the symbols indicate cement batch plant, laydown area, storage, operations and management building. And I find that legend to be extremely general. If any of us in here were to submit to our planning board a plan for some acres that we got, and we'll say, well, we're going to put a cement batch plant there, but we might use it for operations or maintenance or something, or we might not use it, well, maybe we'll use it as a laydown area. Our planning board director or chairman would say, hey, wait a minute, when you find out what the heck you're going to do, then submit us the permit or the plan to put the operation in effect. So basically, I realize it's only a PSS at this point. It's not the application. But to generalize cement batch plants with operation and maintenance and laydown area, I think is really very vague and general. Exhibit A also has it consists of a map. And Richard, I spoke to you on October 23 at the presentation in Cape Vincent, and you asked me, what do you think now? And I said, well, I make my life with maps, and looking at this map, it's very old. It's got to be at least 50 years old. And I think that a project of this magnitude needs to have a map that's of the most recent current edition. And so I hope you can improve on that. And the thing that really bothers me about that map is that it talks about the old railroad grade that goes from Cape Vincent to Watertown, where our old railroad used to be. There is no railroad there. There's no railroad infrastructure there today. But what is there today is very, very critical infrastructure, and that's our Western Jefferson County Regional Water Line that's run by the Development Authority of the North Country, DANC. It's a big, 12-inch interior diameter line. It runs 25 miles and goes right through this town. And it serves us with fresh water for not only this community, but for communities from Cape Vincent all the way to Watertown, to Glen Park. So that's very, very critical infrastructure. Water is the basis of all life. We can't live without water. And yet it's not on that map. And your proposed 115,000 volt transmission line, as I understand it, will co-share part of that right-of-way with the water line, and I think it needs to be delineated as such that you're co-sharing with some critical infrastructure, our source of water, the basis of all life. And so I would ask that any modification of that map would show us that you intend to co-share with the Development Authority. And the Development Authority is a public entity that was set up to supply us with our fresh drinking water. 1.4 million gallons of water can go through that line a day. That's a public agency. It's providing the public with water. And you're a private agency, but you're getting lots of public funding to put this project up. And I think that it's only fair to the citizens that the discussions or negotiations or agreements between BP and DANC be made more transparent, be made more public. I have seen or heard nothing from either entity on what's going on between the two for co-sharing the DANC waterline right-of-way. And the PSS states that the 115,000 volt transmission line will have, and I quote here, tubular steel poles or equivalent type structure. And since our town is about to be bisected with the 100-foot wide right-of-way for the multi-million-dollar transmission line, and since our town of Lyme here will host 90% or more of that transmission line, I think we deserve more than a statement of equivalent type structure. What is an equivalent type structure for a tubular steel pole that's going to be 80 or 95 feet above grade? I don't know, and I was hoping that it could be clearer in the future. And then section 2.35.1, the first three sentences on that, Richard, I would respectfully request that you restudy those statements. That's 2.35.1. And then,
do you recall the contents of that section offhand?
yes, it's in section 35, the transmission line and the impacts of the transmission line. And then finally, Richard, to add maybe a little bit of levity to the to the meeting tonight. You know, I've been here long enough to have watched Acciona come in and leave, and their directors of operations come in and leave. In Hammond, I observed Iberdrola come and go, and their project directors come and go. And then I saw in Clayton, Iberdrola come in, and then they left for a while, now they're back in. And then I see BP buying out Acciona. And as a mariner, I look at this and I see it as like standing on the dock and watching the tide go out, and watching the tide come in, and watching the tide go out. And it's a parade of project directors and companies, and it reminds me of the old Abbott and Costello. I think you're old enough to remember that famous comedy duo Abbott and Costello. They had a very famous comedy skit called "Who's on First? What's on Second? I don't know who's on Third." And every time I think about this whole of the comings and goings of these projects, and now you're up for sale, who knows? Who might be coming in here to deal with this? Maybe a Chinese firm. I have no idea. But I just think of who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third. If you haven't seen that comedy skit, take a look at it, Richard. It's a funny skit, and maybe you'll get a feel for what a citizen who's been watching this whole thing for the last 10 years or so feels. It's a personal observation. So with that, I'll end my comments, and I thank you for the time, Richard.
I appreciate the comments. You've obviously spent some time with the document, so I appreciate the thoughtful feedback.
Yes, sir.